Welcome to module number 3. Module number 3 of the Intermediate English to Spanish Translation class. And today's principle is the following. Truth will out. Sounds like Shakespeare, doesn't it? Truth will out. What does that mean? Well, first of all, yeah, it is Shakespeare. I think that's from The Merchant of Venice. There you go. The Merchant of Venice. Truth will out. Basically, it says that truth will sooner or later become public. In the end, what is true will come to be known. The truth always appears eventually, despite all efforts to hide it or ignore it. Sounds like the society we live in, doesn't it? It is impossible to keep something secret forever. Oh, wow. That's sobering. Keep that in mind. What a principle to be guided by. Sooner or later, truth will come to the surface. All right, what about today's saying or proverb? Let God be true and every man a liar. How about that? Almost goes with the previous principle. Let God be true and every man a liar. That is a proverb that is actually taken from the scriptures. And in Spanish we say, sea Dios veraz y todo hombre mentiroso. Y cuando dice hombre es la humanidad, hombres y mujeres, no importa, niños, niñas, ancianos, ancianas, sea Dios veraz y todo hombre mentiroso. What an important proverb. That is true. Now, what about today's expression? By all means. You heard that one? By all means. How do you say that in Spanish? By all means. Which means in every possible way. A ojos cerrados. A todas luces. A carta cabal. There you go. 3 different uses or 3 different versions of the same expression. So you don't have to reinvent the wheel here. It's already there. It's already coined. Let's look at some examples. My boss trusts me by all means. Eh? Certainly, definitely, of course. That's what by all means means. No faltaba más, por supuesto. So you have 2 different tweaks of the same expression. One of them is in every possible way, just like my boss trusts me by all means. And then when you use by all means, but as an expression, see the exclamatory mark, by all means. Like when you say, can I have a glass of water? May I have a glass of water? By all means. Certainly, definitely, of course. No faltaba más. Por supuesto. In that sense. So there you go. Could I have a glass of water, please? By all means. I'll get you one. So there you go, two different uses of the same words. One is just an expression. The second one is an exclamation. All right? Very good. And today's phrase, see, I'm using a phrase now. It's not just a word, a phrase. Bear down. What does that mean? To bear down. To exert full strength and concentrated attention. To bear down. To move directly towards someone or something in a purposeful or intimidating manner. So two different uses here. And then look at the third one. Increase pressure within the abdomen by contracting the abdominal muscles and holding the breath. That's, we call that in medicine the Valsalva maneuver. But it is within your guts, you put abdominal pressure. You bear down. Sometimes patients, usually ladies, for some reason, their heart rate goes too fast. Way, way fast. Dangerous. Very dangerous. We call that supraventricular tachycardia. And then there's medication for that, but if you don't have the medication, if you don't have the IV, then you can tell the patient to bear down as if they were moving their bowels in the toilet. And it usually helps to slow down the heart rate. I have a dear friend that she told me that happened to her and they had to call the paramedics. And then I told her what to do before the paramedics come in case that happens again. And lo and behold, it happened again. And she just did this. And she told me by the time the paramedics arrived, she was feeling much, much better. All right. So three different uses of bear down. So how would you put that in Spanish? Accionar con fuerza. Hacer presión sobre. Cernerse sobre. O sencillamente pujar. En el caso del tercero, es pujar. Pujar siempre viene de adentro hacia afuera, de adentro del cuerpo. Por ejemplo, cuando una mujer está dando a luz, nosotros en inglés decimos push, pero en español no es empujar, es pujar, pujar, porque es de adentro del cuerpo para que el bebé salga. Si es exert full strength and concentrated attention, el primero, accionar con fuerza. Y también hacer presión sobre. El segundo, to move directly towards someone, cernerse sobre alguien. Y el tercero sería pujar. Déjeme cambiarle aquí alguito. Le voy a poner aquí un punto y coma para que se puedan ver las diferencias, las tres diferencias. ¿Alguna pregunta sobre bear down? All right. Very good. Here are some examples. You have to know when to conserve your strength and when to bear down with every bit of energy you have. Tienes que saber cuándo conservar tus fuerzas y cuándo presionar hacia abajo con toda la energía que poseas. The man was bearing down on Jim along the path. So here's a person who is approaching another person. El hombre estaba cerniéndose sobre, acercándose en una manera amenazante. El hombre estaba cerniéndose sobre Jim en el camino. All right? Very good. Any question about bear down? Great. It's fair game now, okay? Now we have a couple announcements. Quiz number 1 is due this Thursday before class. I will email you the link tonight after class. And then you also have your translation homework number 2, which is to be turned in by midnight this coming Saturday. I will send you that homework also tonight. All right? Now, here's an important announcement. I decided that before we go on with learning more techniques on translation, we must review the ones that we learned during the introduction of translation. Now, we already covered them very quickly during module 1. It was actually on the slides. So tonight I will spend more time reviewing that because you must master the introductory class in order to move on. And then to help you and motivate you, I have added a test that will be due a week from today. I will send you that test tomorrow. I want you to review, so you can master what we learned during the introduction. Because we're going to be learning new stuff. And we must be able to master what we learned during the first class. All right? So I'm going to share a handout in just a minute, which I will also send you tonight. So we are calling this the Introductory Course Review Test. It will be due before class next Tuesday. I will send it to you tomorrow. But tonight, I will send you the handout that I'm about to share with you. All right? Great. So I will stop sharing and I will share that handout with you. All right. Here we go. Direct, indirect object versus indirect and direct object. And again, we already covered this the first day we met last week. But I want to do it again to get you ready to do well on that test. The test is going to be just a translation of sentences, just like the ones we are doing here. So Here we have, I received a birthday gift from my parents. And you see how the direct object in English comes before the indirect object. I received what? A birthday gift. That's the direct object. From whom? From my parents. That's the indirect object. But in Spanish, we tend to put the indirect object before the direct object. So we say, recibí de mis padres un regalo de cumpleaños. ¿Ve? Como de mis padres va inmediatamente después del verbo recibí. Y un regalo de cumpleaños viene después, en ese orden. So, see that nuance? Many so-called translators, they miss that. And you want to make sure that your eye is keen towards saying things like this. Because when you take the certification exam, they're going to be looking for things like this. Any question on that one? All right. The second one is what we call the indirect object pronoun plus the definite article. And we have gone over this before. Typically, when in English you use the possessive pronouns such as wash your hands, in Spanish, we don't do that. We just put a definite article, las manos. Okay? Wash your hands, lávate las manos. Now that's using tú. If it's usted, lávese las manos. But never sus manos o tus manos. Raise your hand. Levante la mano. Does your leg hurt? ¿Le duele la pierna? Now, this also deals with what we call the reflexive, because these are things that you do by yourself. Wash your hands, raise your hand, and the hurting is happening in you. It's nobody's doing it to you. And that's when you put the definite article. So that's number 2. If you have any questions, please ask, because I want you, I will expect, if you don't have any questions, that you master this. Now, indirect object versus direct object. The indirect object is used much more in Spanish than in English. Okay? Now, people are doing things for others, and this often calls for the use of le and the informal te. I just want you to be able to identify that indirect object. Remember, the indirect object answers the question to whom or for whom. Okay? And I bolded the indirect object here for you, which becomes part of the verb. I would like to help you. Me gustaría ayudarle. So there, le is the indirect object. And you see how how the I, which is in the nominative case, turns into the objective case, me. Me gustaría ayudarle. If it's tú, me gustaría ayudarte. I will buy her a gift. Voy a comprarle un regalo. So to whom? For whom? For her. See? Le, indirect object. Number 4. Subject object inversion. This happens, but not all the time. When does it happen? It says it depends on the verb that you are using, such as the verb like. So it happens when you use the verb to like. The subject and the object are inverted. I like coffee. Me, again, instead of yo, me gusta el café. Now, it also happens with these type of verbs. Notice that the English subject corresponds to the Spanish indirect object in all of these cases. I feel happy. Feel in the sense of the inside emotion, not feeling like you when you are feeling the table, touching the table. No, it's the feeling inside of you. When you use that, whether it is happy or sad or angry or whatever, you use me. Me siento feliz. Me siento mal. Me siento enojado. ¿Eh? Now look at this one. They lack courage. Here the verb is lack, to lack. Les falta coraje. So again, it is the indirect object in this case. ¿A quiénes? A ellos les falta coraje. And coraje has to do here with valentía. I got tired. Again, in Spanish, we go back to sentir. Me siento cansado. Because that's you're feeling inside, you feel tired. Did you get COVID? ¿Le dio a usted? ¿Le dio COVID? So again, that verb get will do it. You're low in iron. Te falta hierro. I like her a lot. Again, like. Me gusta mucho. So those specific verbs, look for that. Any question? Eh?
Dr.
Sí.
Gonzalez, can I got tired also be me cansé?
Say that again, please.
The sentence I got tired, can it also be translated me cansé?
Yeah, me cansé. Yeah.
Okay.
Me cansé. Me cansé de esperarte. I got tired of waiting for you. Me cansé de esperarte. Yeah.
Señor,
Yes.
I like her a lot. I do not see the pronoun that refers to her. I only see me gusta. I like a lot. Should that not be me le gusta mucho?
Me is still me. I am doing the liking.
Correct, but you're not addressing it to anyone. You're just saying, I like it a lot. You're not referring to anyone in that.
No, you're correct. Yeah. I'm just making it as short as possible. Uh, if you must, ella me gusta mucho. That way. Ella me gusta mucho. O
The
él
pronoun
me gusta mucho.
the pronoun would go before me,
Yes.
not
Ella me
before
gusta
gusta.
mucho. Él me
Okay.
gusta mucho.
Okay. Thank you.
Sí. Now there we gotta be careful because of um and this got me in trouble when I was in college learning English. Um because typically when you say I like her a lot, it may be understood that there's some feelings involved. When you say it that way. So you want to be more specific. If there's not a personal romantic feeling, or you want to say it about a good friend, you may want to use another sentence, such as me cae bien, me cae bien, me simpatiza. But that will get you off the hook of being misunderstood by people thinking that you are meaning in a romantic way. Me simpatiza, me cae bien. All right? Like you could say that about a politician. Me cae bien. You may not want to say me gusta. Okay? It's just, it may not sound correct. Me cae bien, me simpatiza. All right? And then the famous se. We got the impersonal. It translates words like one, anyone, you, but it's impersonal. How do you say blueberry in Spanish? You're not really saying you. When you say that in English, it's not just you, it's anybody. How does anybody say blueberry in Spanish? But in English, we typically say, how do you say blueberry in Spanish? So in Spanish, we fix that ambiguity. And we say, ¿cómo se dice blueberry en español? So you're not saying, ¿cómo usted dice? No, ¿cómo se dice? You keep it impersonal. What is your brother's name? ¿Cómo se llama tu hermano? So again, in this case, it has to do with the name of the brother. In this case, your brother. ¿Cómo se llama tu hermano? How does one eat curry? ¿Cómo se come el curry? Again, keeping it impersonal. Because the emphasis is on the word that comes after se. Se dice, se llama, se come. Where can anyone pay the water bill? ¿Dónde se paga la cuenta del agua? So the emphasis is not anyone, but the payment. ¿Cómo se paga? Perdón, ¿dónde? ¿Dónde se paga la cuenta del agua? And that's what makes it impersonal. Passive voice se. Very important. We hardly ever use the passive voice in Spanish. Now, you may argue that good English avoids the passive voice, and that's correct. But most people don't talk in English, they don't talk like the academia way of talking. Just normal English. The house was built in 2008. But you never want to say la casa fue construida en 2008. No, la casa se construyó en 2008. O you could say se construyó la casa en 2008. The University of Puerto Rico was founded in 1903. You don't want to say la Universidad de Puerto Rico fue fundada en 1903. No. Se fundó la Universidad de Puerto Rico o la Universidad de Puerto Rico se fundó en 1903. This is what needs to be done. Again, passive voice. To be done. You don't say esto es lo que necesita ser hecho. No, no, no. Esto es lo que se necesita hacer. Put it in that active voice with the help of se. Going back to the reflexive se, it is I think there's a mistake here. It used. It is used for something done by yourself. Let me fix that. Okay. It is used for something done by yourself or itself. Singular or plural only. Third person, singular or plural. She wakes up or he wakes up. Se despierta. Por sí solo, por sí sola. They wake up, se despiertan. My wife goes to bed at 9 every night, at 9 p.m. Mi esposa se acuesta a las 9 p.m. cada noche. See, she goes to bed by herself. In other words, nobody picks her up and puts her in bed like a baby. It is reflexive. It is done by herself. My parents get along well. Mis padres se llevan bien. Again, examples of the reflexive. The reciprocal se. It is used for actions that two or more people perform on each other. In the second and third person only, plural only. It has to be plural because there's more than one person. Do you know each other? ¿Se conocen? I'm putting ustedes in parentheses because you don't really need it. They greet each other. Se saludan. You text each other. Se envían textos. Again, that's se. I will go ahead and make this bold just for show to make it consistent. Combined objects say combination or contraction of direct and indirect object. Now, this can go at the beginning or at the end of the combined phrase. Now, look at the English sentence. I am going to give him the backpack. So, him is the indirect object. The direct object is the backpack. I'm going to give what? The backpack. To whom? To him. So here, what we do is, in the verb give, we change the ending and we put the indirect object at the end of the verb, which is le. Voy a darle la mochila. So again, le will be the indirect object. I'll bold that for you right there. Now, replace the backpack with se and contract le plus la. Look at this. Voy a dársela. So here we put in se and then la. Se will be the indirect object, and then la will be the backpack. So it's one of those few Spanish constructions when you contract. Voy a dársela, which is the same as se la voy a dar. Any question on that one? Pretty neat how we contract that. Voy a dársela. And again, a good translator is always trying to use short as opposed to long sentences without compromising the message, of course. We had to give him the tickets. Tenemos que darles los boletos. Que tenemos que darle. We say les because boletos is plural. Darles los boletos. Now, you replace tickets with se, and you say tenemos que dárselos. Just like before. O se los tenemos que dar.
I have
Any
a
question
question.
on that?
Yes, I do. Sorry.
Go ahead.
Tenemos que darles los boletos. El darles no habla de la persona. If it's him, no sería tenemos que darle a él, to him, darle los boletos.
Actually, you could look at it in two different ways. So let me go ahead and add that one. When you use les, you're referring to the boletos.
Correct.
When you're using le, you're referring to
To
him.
him. But they're both correct.
Yes.
Correct. Okay.
Let me add that one. Tenemos que darle, es como decir darle a él los boletos.
You just wouldn't say that because that's redundant, but you are adding the person in the verb. Contracting
Exactly.
it. Okay, good.
Exactly. Yeah, thank you. That's a neat one. Que darle los boletos a él, por supuesto, o darles los boletos will be putting emphasis on the tickets. All right? Now here tenemos que dárselos. Dárselos again. Plural because it is boletos. Se los tenemos que dar. And then finally, no fault se, which is one of my favorites because in English it's hard to tell if the person did it purposely or it wasn't his fault or her fault. Unexpected occurrences that do not place the blame on anyone. Okay. Now it's telling me that this is misspelled here. Let me double check real quick. Okay. No. I'm not sure why it's being
Dos Cs. Un R.
una R. Occurrences.
I think it's
Okay.
2 R's, but it's
I-
2 C's as well.
I thought, yes, 2 R's, 2 C's.
Two
Uh.
R's, two C's.
Uh.
Oh, at the beginning. Yeah, thank you, thank you. Thank you. All right. I appreciate it. Unexpected occurrences that do not place the blame on anyone. John lost his wallet. He didn't mean to lose it. Se le perdió. Se le perdió la cartera, la billetera. Wallet could be either billetera or cartera. Some people, they think that cartera is only for ladies. But for men, especially in the Caribbean, we use cartera. La cartera del hombre, la cartera del caballero, la cartera de la dama. I forgot your books. Se me olvidaron tus libros. But you didn't do it purposely. Oh, perdón, se me olvidaron tus libros. Now, this is even more clear when you say, oh, I dropped the keys on the floor. Se me cayeron las llaves. It's not like I threw them or I dropped them. I remember I was a freshman in college and I lived in the men's dormitory and we had a big bathroom just like the barracks in the military. And I saw this guy that was bleeding from the face. And I said, are you okay? He said, oh, I cut myself when he was shaving. And then I said to myself in my poor English, in my mind, I said to myself, why did you do that? Because when he said I cut myself, I thought that he did it purposely. I just went on and I didn't put too much thought on it. But then later I realized that in English, you don't have a way of saying it that I didn't do it purposely unless you express that. People just say, oh, I cut myself. In Spanish, we take it literally. I cut myself. Okay? All right. Great. And the famous aún. Make sure that you review that. We have gone over that again and again. Be very careful. Okay, I don't want to spend more time on it, but be careful on them. Read the instructions carefully, because when it comes to sentences that I want aún, I'm telling you in the instructions, make sure that you write aún. Do not write the equivalent, such as todavía, sin embargo, incluso, none of that. I want to see aún, with or without the accent. And then the last section is the had, were, would, that some people still have trouble with. So if you learn these patterns, they will help you tremendously. until they become part of you. He said he would come. Él dijo que vendría. ¿Eh? Keep in mind, the next one, had and would. Si Alfred hubiera corrido bien, Bernard habría sonreído. O sea que una cosa tiene que pasar antes que la otra. Y la primera es la que termina en hiera. Si Alfred fuera a venir, Bernard no vendría. If Alfred had been part of the plan, then Bernard would have known about it. Así que el que usa el verbo que termina en hiera es lo que ocurre primero. Mire bien, si Alfred hubiera sido parte del plan, entonces Bernard se habría enterado. Es imposible que él se habría enterado si Alfred no hubiera sido parte del plan. Ese orden. Ahora, este es una excepción. Quiero marcar este O bien claro aquí. Él actúa como si fuera inteligente o como si lo hubieran elegido. Aquí los dos terminan en hiera. ¿Por qué? Por la conjunción O. La conjunción O, igual que la conjunción I, une igualdades gramaticales. Y encontré un pasaje en la Biblia, muy bien traducido, que ilustra esto que estoy diciendo. Y aquí está. En este caso no es era, es ere, pero se mantiene igual ere por la conjunción I, que une igualdades gramaticales. Dice, porque es menester que esto corruptible sea vestido de incorrupción y esto mortal sea vestido de inmortalidad, hablando del cuerpo, de cuando una persona muere, ¿verdad? Y cuando esto corruptible fuere vestido de incorrupción y esto mortal fuere vestido de inmortalidad, entonces se efectuará la palabra que está escrita: sorbida es la muerte con victoria. Así que una ilustración bien clara y bonita de las escrituras. Estos traductores estaban pensando en todas estas reglas de traducción. Muy buenos traductores. Así que cada vez que encuentre ejemplos en la Biblia, se los voy a enseñar para que usted pueda verlos usados en otro ámbito. ¿Alguna pregunta? All right. So review that. I will send you this tonight so you can continue to review and then use it as a guide as you do the review test, which will be due next Tuesday before class. And I will send that test to you tomorrow. All right? Great. Let's go back now to our slides. Okay. Great. One more, and then I change subjects. Direct, indirect object versus indirect and direct object. It says, so then, and then this is taken from the Bible. So then every one of us shall give account of himself to God. Look at the direct object and the indirect object. In English, typically, direct object comes first, and then indirect object comes second. But in the Spanish Bible, the indirect object comes first. De manera que cada uno de nosotros dará a Dios cuenta de sí. You see? Indirect and then the direct object. Like I said, when I come across any of these from the Bible, I will bring them to you. And the beauty of the Bible, unlike many other books, is that you can have it side by side. I highly recommend that you purchase a bilingual Bible so you can have it right next, one column in English and the column next to it in Spanish, and you can see both. You're constantly looking at strategies that deal with translation. All right? Great. Now we introduce the topic of prescriptive guidelines. Now, when the doctor writes a prescription, the doctor is telling you what you must purchase. So that's what prescription means. It's telling you what you need to do. For example, you have some if you are a parent, you have prescriptive guidelines for your children. Like, do not touch the hot stove. Do not go in the middle of the street for their own sake. So you prescribe certain guidelines. And here we are looking exactly at that. Prescriptive guidelines for you and for me. Let's take a closer look. Heaven and earth shall pass away, but my words shall not pass away. That's found in Matthew 24:35. What does that mean? Say, God's creation, the earth, the stars, the moon, the animals, all of us, we are transient. But his words are eternal. Transient means que pasa. It will pass away. But not God's word. They are eternal. Now, in Greek, and the New Testament was written in Greek, there are two words for the word word. So how do you say word in Greek? Well, there are two words for the word word. One is logos, the other one is rhema. Logos typically deals with the general, the entire message. Rhema deals with the specific word itself, like the noun, the verb, the adjective, the adverb, the words themselves. So keep that in mind. Truth is absolute, permanent, and objective. We know that. God's assertion about his eternal truth demands a response from the reader. The instruction, we must be teachable. The order of God gives us security. For example, the order that we see in creation, we know that the sun is going to come up tomorrow morning. it kind of gives us security. And then it also gives us authority. So our response should be submission. So going back, God's word, his instruction, our response should be that we should be teachable. The order, it gives us security. And then the word of God, which is authority, our response should be to obey it, to be submissive to it. Now, let's talk about truth. And it may sound a little philosophical, but honestly, it is not. It is very practical. Very practical. What is truth? Well, do you know that there are only two sources of truth in this world? You are learning grammar. You could be learning math, science. You could be learning literature. And all of those come from one of these two sources. What are they? Observation and revelation. Observation is what you learn with your senses, with your five senses. If you ever took a biology class, I'm sure that they helped you and trained you on how to use your senses, such as your eyes looking down through a microscope. And you're learning by what is known as experimental knowledge. But honestly, most of what you know is being revealed to you. Even the math that you know, el teorema de Pitágoras, lo más probable que te lo enseñaron. Que la suma de el cuadrado de los catetos es igual al cuadrado de la hipotenusa en un triángulo recto. No importa lo que hayas aprendido, típicamente te lo revelaron. No lo descubriste tú solo. So most of what you learn is revealed to you, honestly. Very few things we learn by observation, although we can learn things by observation. Definitely. Definitely. All right. Now let's see this in a practical way. The observation and the revelation. Observation deals with operation science. Things that are regular. Things that occur again and again, which can then be empirically studied with your senses. For example, you could observe whatever is regular under controlled conditions in a lab. Some examples that I'm giving you are the ocean tides, the solar system, the animal behavior, the coronavirus, because they happen again and again. But that's not the only source of knowledge. The other one, as we said, is revelation, and we call this origin or forensic science. They don't study regularities, they study singularities that cannot be empirically studied because they only happen one time. Therefore, you cannot observe them in a lab because they happen one time, such as somebody's birth, historical events like Columbus discovered America on October the 12th of 1492. The origin of the universe only happened one time. So you cannot use observational science to study it because it happened once. It's like a crime. A crime happened one time. Now we try to, forensic experts, they try to recreate what happened, but it's not the exact same thing. So that we call origin science, that deals with revelation. Having said that, I want to put this together into our day-to-day life. So here's my application. Your view of God, whatever you think of God, will shape your philosophy of life, your worldview. Keep that in mind. So everyone has a philosophy of life. For example, a part of the philosophy of your life is that you are disciplined to be sitting in class tonight instead of watching a movie. See, so that discipline stems from God. Your view of God determines your philosophy, your worldview. And then your philosophy determines your thinking and practice. There are today, in today's life, there's a big contrast in philosophy of what is success and how do you achieve success. You have the Walt Disney philosophy that teaches that success is inside of you and that all you have to do is let it out. It's all inside of you. You have what it takes to succeed inside of you without any externals. Basically the same message that Bad Bunny brought during the Super Bowl break when he came out. That's basically what he said. You have it in you. That's one philosophy of life. That's one worldview. But there's another one. And the other one says that it is not inside of you, but outside of you what will help you be successful. And that outside of you is made up by people, but more specifically by God Himself, being outside of you and guiding you. So two contrasting worldviews that we are seeing in society today. And you gotta be watching out for them because they're all over. And sometimes we don't even realize it. We cannot just fall in the trap without even thinking that it is well designed and well rehearsed. All right? So keep that in mind. I tend to go with the outside of me. Today I went out for a walk because I want to keep and stay healthy. How do I measure that? With something outside of me. It's called the scale. I step on the scale and I can see how much I weigh. And then the interpretation outside of me. When they draw my blood and they send it to the lab is outside of me. And they do that interpretation there. And all kinds of tests that doctors do. Keep that in mind. Keep that in mind. Every great person throughout the history of civilization was influenced by someone outside of them. Some people put it this way: behind every great man, there's a great woman. And that woman, of course, is outside of that man. Sometimes it's a good mentor that has helped someone. You see that in sports, you see that in the military, you see that in basically any achievement of mankind. All right, enough for that. Here is what I put it in a diagram. Truth is out there. Truth doesn't change. See, it's eternal. It is not, it just doesn't change. It's the same. Now, we try to discover truth by gathering data, whether it is historical data, we call that revelation. Scientific data, we call that observation. And then our philosophy, which I just said, is based on your view of God, whether it is something outside of you or something inside of you. And then you take all of that and you evaluate. The evaluation is human. That's what the mistakes come. Well, based on the philosophy and the evaluations. And then hopefully we discover what is true. That goes for any achievement in life. So the discovery of truth. Philosophy will inform your thinking and practice. To what philosophy do you subscribe? To the fact that it is all inside of you, or that it is outside of you what makes you great? Facts from history, science, philosophy help in the discovery of truth. The collection of facts is directed by scientific principles, we hope. We don't taint them. We don't influence them or contaminate them, at least purposely, hopefully. Some people do, however. And then the evaluation of those facts is accomplished by human interpretations. So here is what we call the bottleneck, where the problems may come, our unhuman interpretations. Now, this important note: neither the facts from history, science, and philosophy, nor their evaluation establish truth. Truth is already there. It is not shaped by any of those. That shapes the discovery of truth, but not truth itself. All right. Now we are going to have a short section today on grammar, because we already had a long section at the beginning of the class. And this one is not going to be hard, but it's important to know these little guidelines because you will use them. Yesterday, I spent all day long translating six flyers or brochures for marketing. And I will go into marketing later in the advanced class, because when you do marketing translations, you have to change some of the general rules of translation, but we'll get to that eventually. But little rules like the ones that we're looking at tonight They were very important to me when I was doing those 6 translations of those brochures yesterday. I was very busy yesterday translating. One es la división de palabras. Las palabras en español se pueden dividir después de una vocal. Salado, camisa, tortuga, acento. Todas estas terminan en una vocal, por lo tanto, se consideran que son palabras llanas, con su fuerza de pronunciación, también le llaman graves, con su fuerza de pronunciación en la penúltima sílaba. Salado, camisa, tortuga, acento. Ninguna lleva tilde porque no es necesaria. Se pueden dividir dos vocales a menos que una de estas sea una I o una U que no se acentúa fonéticamente. O sea, que no sea un hiato. Vamos a mirarlo. V-O, auge. Otra vez, estamos dividiendo dos vocales. Ah, ah, que cuando una de estas es I y otra es O, que no se acentúan fonéticamente. Auge. Continúa. Región. Caoba. Refugio. ¿Eh? Y otras. Sangría, necio, conjunción.
¿Cómo? Qué pena, tengo una pregunta. ¿Cómo aplica veo ahí que no tiene I o U?
Ah, dice que se pueden dividir dos vocales
Ujú.
a menos que una de
O
estas sea
así.
I o U.
Que no se acentúa. Ok, esas son las que no se pueden porque vendrían siendo hiato. Entiendo.
Correcto, correcto. Así que como esta no es ni I ni U, la podemos dividir. ¿Ok? ¿Claro? Mírenlo otra vez. Se pueden dividir dos vocales. A menos que una de estas sea I o U, que no se acentúa. O sea, que no sea un hiato. Y veo se aplica porque no es ni I ni U y tampoco es hiato. All right? Veo. Las vocales contiguas que combinan A, E, o combinaciones de estas con I y U que llevan acento escrito son realmente sílabas separadas. Helas aquí. Creer, leal, baúl, crío, reír. Así que son vocales contiguas que combinan A, E, o combinaciones con I y con U que llevan acento escrito son realmente sílabas separadas. Y al leerlo, al pronunciarlo, uno se da cuenta. Creer, leal, baúl, crío, reír. Así que no hay unión, hay separación. No se pueden separar combinaciones de dos vocales. en la cual una es I o U no acentuada, ya que forman un diptongo. Ciego, viuda, guante. Por tradición se ha considerado que la CH, la doble L y la doble R son una letra y por lo tanto no se dividen. Y esta regla sigue vigente en el siglo XXI. Hechicero, la CH, la doble R, carro y lluvia. Se pueden dividir dos consonantes, incluso la CC y la NN. Mírelo aquí. Fantasma. Mire la S y la M. Andanza. N y Z. Lección. Aquí está la doble C. Y la doble N. Innovación. Se pueden dividir dos consonantes si se encuentran entre dos vocales. Pactar. Puerta. Barba. Prender. Esto es bastante sencillo. Las consonantes L y R no se separan nunca de la consonante que las precede, salvo en el caso de la S. Grande, ¿eh? Precoz, cubrir, drástico, israelita. Así que las consonantes L y R no se separan de las consonantes que las precede. Ahí está la R en grande, en precoz, encubrir, y tenemos drástico, salvo en el caso de la S. Así, ahí sí, drástico, israelita. Otros ejemplos, copla, aislado, regla, bucle. ¿Eh? Combinaciones de 3 o 4 consonantes se dividen de acuerdo con las reglas antedichas. La S se acopla a la sílaba que la precede. Mírenlo aquí. Estropear, convertir, extraño, obstante. ¿Eh? Constante, la S se queda con la anterior, como ya dice la regla. Esdrújula, instructor, emblemático. Los prefijos preposicionales o prepositivos forman sílabas separadas. Abnegar, exprimir, despintar, concebir. Así que ab, ex, des, con son prefijos. Y le llaman prefijos preposicionales o prepositivos. Sin embargo, cuando el prefijo viene antes de una S seguida por una, la S queda con el prefijo. Abstraer, constatar, Inscripción perspectiva. Mire esta, sin embargo, absorber, insinceridad, persistir, desechar. Cuando el prefijo viene antes de una S, seguida por una consonante, no sé por qué la consonante me quedó abajo, seguida por una consonante, la S queda con el prefijo. Cuando una sílaba se compone de solo una vocal, ocupar, arreo, no se debe dejar la letra sola ni al final ni al principio de la línea. Por ejemplo, las siguientes separaciones son correctas. Nosotros o nosotros, pero nunca nosotros. ¿Eh? Son reglas que honestamente hoy en día con la computadora yo no me preocupo porque la computadora va a seguir las reglas, no te las va a dejar dividir. Y otra cosa que fue algo muy interesante que me enseñó una profesora, cuando en duda, mire el diccionario. Así que, y honestamente, en el día del examen de certificación lo vas a hacer en computadora y la computadora no te va a dejar dividir palabras. Así que es cuestión de saberlo para saber las reglas, pero no va a ser no va a tener mucha influencia el día del examen. Las palabras y los nombres extranjeros que se incorporan al léxico español se separan de acuerdo con las reglas antedichas y no con las del idioma de origen. Así que se españolizan. Washington va de acuerdo a la división de las reglas de español. Janet, Whiskey, Hurlingham. Artículos. El español tiene varios artículos definidos o indeterminados. O determinados, perdón, e indefinidos o indeterminados. El definido, el, los, la, las, lo, y el indefinido, un, unos, una, unas. El artículo el se combina con las preposiciones a y de para formar al y del. Son muy pocas las veces que en español tenemos contracciones y este es uno de los pocos ejemplos. Al niño, no decimos a el niño, al niño. Del hombre, no decimos de el hombre. A menos que él sea parte del nombre. Por ejemplo, mi amigo es de El Salvador. El Salvador es el nombre del país. Así que ahí no dices, mi amigo es del Salvador. No, mi amigo es de El Salvador. ¿Por qué? Porque El Salvador es el nombre del país. Es como decir México, Perú, Venezuela. Y el nombre del país es El Salvador. ¿Eh? Pero no cuando se escribe de él, de ella. Eh, ¿De quién es este? ¿De quién es este sombrero? Oh, el sombrero es de él. No, el sombrero es de ella. Ahí lo separamos. Sin embargo, en plural cambia a los niños y de los hombres. Esto lo sabemos. El artículo la no se ve afectado a las y de las. Cuando el artículo definido la ocurre justo antes de un sustantivo femenino singular que comienza con la letra A o A enfatizada, se reemplaza por el. Vamos a verlo. El agua, el hambre, el área. Así que comienza con la letra A. Agua, hambre, la H se ignora, área. No decimos la agua, no decimos la hambre, ni la área. El. Sin embargo, en plural, y esto es para evitar la cacofonía, en plural no hay cacofonía. Así que decimos las aguas frías, porque no decimos la agua, las aguas frías. No decimos la hambre, las hambres sufridas. Y no decimos la área, las áreas sólidas. Así que en plural llevan el género femenino. También se usa el artículo la antes de sustantivos propios femeninos. La Haya, la Andalucía Oriental, la Argentina. También se usa el artículo definido antes del infinitivo de un verbo. El comer, el caminar. Se omite el artículo definido entre el nombre y el número de un soberano. Carlos V, Enrique VIII. Por alguna razón en Centroamérica he oído algo que no se debe usar y es que llaman a las personas por artículo definido. Por ejemplo, dígale a la María que venga acá. Dígale al José que lo estoy esperando. Y se usa, pero no es correcto. ¿Ok? Aunque usted lo oiga, no es correcto. No lo vaya a usar en traducciones. No, porque la Roxana me dijo, no, 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 no. Roxana me dijo, Carlos V me dijo, Enrique VIII. A propósito, mire que el quinto y el octavo es con letra minúscula en español. Lo mismo ocurre con los artículos indefinidos en el singular. Un ala, un hacha, un alma. No decimos una ala, una hacha, una alma. Pero no, pero en este caso hay una excepción, una alumna. Aunque está aceptado, alumna viene en sí del latín y se acepta en este caso. Ella es una alumna mía. Y en el plural, por supuesto, cambia todo femenino, unas alas, unas hachas, unas almas, porque no hay cacofonía. Una y unos también indican una cantidad aproximada. En unos 20 días, él va a llegar. Tendrá unos 80 años, más o menos. Se coloca el artículo indefinido antes de un sustantivo abstracto, seguido por un adjetivo que lo califica. Reinaba un silencioso absoluto. ¿Qué estamos diciendo aquí? Este artículo indefinido un antes de un sustantivo abstracto seguido por un adjetivo que lo califica. Un silencio absoluto. Es algo abstracto. Se debe repetir el artículo indefinido cuando se usan dos sustantivos. Llevaba puestos una blusa y una falda. Sería incorrecto decir llevaba puestos una blusa y falda. Es una y una. ¿Por qué? Porque son dos sustantivos. Blusa y falda son dos sustantivos. Dos piezas, dos prendas de vestir. En español, el adjetivo y el artículo deben concordar en número y en género con el sustantivo o con el pronombre que lo modifica. El hombre gordo, la mujer sana, esto lo sabemos, las áreas lisas, los pelos cortos. Hay concordancia de género. ¿Eh? En inglés no. The fat man, the fat woman. Same. ¿Eh? The healthy woman, the healthy man. Pero en español no, es género, el o la. Apócopes. ¿Qué es esto? Ocurre cuando la vocal o sílaba se elimina de la palabra. Famoso apócope. Las siguientes palabras pierden la O final cuando esta ocurre delante de un sustantivo masculino singular. 1, 21, algún, ninguno, primero, tercero, bueno, malo. ¿Ok? ¿Qué decimos nosotros? Pierde la O. Decimos un carro. 21, lo que estemos diciendo. Así que no decimos 21 carros, no 21 carros. Algún, falta la coma ahí, algún, déjeme ponerla porque si no se me olvida. Ops, se me fue, pero no se preocupe, ya lo traigo. Ok, aquí viene. Vamos a ver, se lo traigo otra vez. Share the screen. And here we are. Great. Ok. Me acuerdo, estaba yo en Israel y un niñito palestino, estaba yo en Belén, estaba vendiendo algo por $1 y él decía $1, $1. Yo le dije, no, no, $1, $1. Y entonces ya empezó a decirlo bien. Entonces, pero esto se sabe. No, 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 no. Yo he oído personas profesionales usando, eh, en vez de primero, en vez de decir primer lugar, dicen primero lugar. Esto lo oí mucho recientemente en una de mis reuniones. ¿Eh? Santo pasa a ser san cuando se habla de un santo canonizado. San Miguel, San Juan, San Pedro. Pero hay excepciones. Santo Tomás, no decimos San Tomás. Santo Tomé, Santo Toledo, Santo Toribio y Santo Domingo. No decimos San Domingo. ¿Eh? Otros apócopes. Grande pasa a ser a gran. Delante de un sustantivo masculino singular que empieza con una consonante. Un gran ruido. Un gran mentiroso. Ese señor. Lo antedicho es optativo delante de un sustantivo femenino o singular o sustantivo masculino singular que empieza con una vocal. Sí, una gran mujer. un gran automóvil. Así que en este caso tenemos con una vocal automóvil, un gran automóvil. Un grande automóvil. No me suena, aunque se puede aceptar. Un gran automóvil, un grande automóvil. Un automóvil grande, sí, pero no al principio. Los adverbios tanto y cuando cambian a tan y cuán antes de un adjetivo u otro adverbio. ¿Cuán largo es el viaje? No decimos cuánto largo, tan pronto como quieras, tan pronto como sea posible. ASAP, no tanto pronto. Otros apócopes, antes del participio pasado, recientemente, cambia a recién. Recién llegado, recién nacido. No decimos recientemente llegado ni recientemente nacido. Antes de un sustantivo masculino singular y a veces antes de un sustantivo femenino singular, cualquiera pierde la última A. Cualquier hombre, cualquier mujer. No cualquiera mujer, cualquier mujer. Sin embargo, suena mejor decir todo hombre o toda mujer. Esa es la que yo prefiero usar cuando traduzco any, any. Todo hombre, toda mujer. Abstain from any greasy food, says the doctor. Absténgase de toda comida grasosa. Mucho mejor que de cualquier comida grasosa. Y conjunciones. Conjunciones tienen el papel de enlazar dos oraciones o dos elementos de una oración que se realiza la misma función con respecto al verbo y con respecto a cualquier otra palabra. Simplemente dicho, las conjunciones unen igualdades gramaticales, que fue lo que les dije hoy a principio. ¿Se acuerdan? La conjunción en español son, las conjunciones son aunque, cuando, como, mientras, o, pero, porque, si, y. Antes de eso, sabemos que usamos eh, en vez de decir y, si la segunda palabra comienza con i, vamos a hacer una muchacha que se llama Inés. Rosa, Rosa and Inés came to see me. En español sería Rosa e Inés vinieron a verme. ¿Por qué? Para que no suene la cacofonía Rosa y Inés. Y lo mismo la U se usa cuando la segunda palabra comienza con O. If I want to say Luis or Orlando came, Luis or Orlando may go. En español sería Luis u Orlando puede ir. Para que no suene Luis o Orlando. Así que acuérdese de esa. Ninguna lleva tilde. En el pasado sí, ya no. ¿Alguna pregunta? All right, my friends. These are just general guidelines that will help you. Nothing too exciting about it. Just rules that we need to know because the day will come when you will need them. So there they are for you. All right. I will send you the slides, but I want to make sure that I correct one mistake that I saw earlier before I send it to you. You have a good night. God bless you. And I will send you an important email tonight. Remember, I'll be sending you the link to the quiz and also the translation homework number 2, which is due on Saturday, plus that handout that we were looking at in class. So 3 important, 2 attachments and 1 link. And one more, yes, since we added a test for next Tuesday, due next Tuesday, I will send you an updated syllabus that includes that test due next Tuesday. Have a good night. Bye now.